Got I don't think we've watched one of Exclusive Ace's videos on stream before, but this is his video that he did. Is XDefiant any good at launch? And he's a guy that is very analytical. I've met him in real life. He's a really nice dude, fellow Canadian. And I kind of wanted to hear his take on XDefiant. I know I skimmed through here, and the first little bit is about connection experience, and that for me has been pretty decent, but we're going to see what he has to say, about the weapon leveling and everything in between. As we make this or watch this, there is an update getting worked on and getting put out for XDefiant, which we're going to play later. I'm hoping to see weapon XP buffed, but I don't think it's going to be based off of the patch notes. So yeah, let's watch this video. Let's see what Ace is saying.
What's up, guys? My name is Ace, and XDefiant is finally here. And today, I just wanted to share some of my really early initial impressions now that the game has been out for a full day. Or at least almost a full day. You could argue it hasn't quite been a full day yet, because it had quite a rocky launch.
Oh yeah,
yesterday,
so
when the big launch
on the Tuesday that this game came out, I wasn't home. I went to a concert out of town, and apparently like the first 3 hours you couldn't get into a game. So I never had that experience, but I heard about it.
And the servers went live. It seemed just about everybody was having a very hard time getting into any matches. Like,
also, if you didn't know why, it's because 1 million players tried playing in the first 2.5 hours.
The game up, you could search for matches, but the problem was actually getting into a match. It was still possible. Many people were managing to get in, and if you just kept at it, eventually you would get into some matches. But for me, for instance, I only had the morning to work with yesterday, and in those first 2 hours or so where I had some time to play XDefiant, I managed to get into one single game, which is the gameplay you're seeing in the background. That's why it's nothing really special. I just wanted to share my first official match.
What do you mean, bro? You're fragging out.
Build of the game.
Although you didn't see that guy behind you.
Extremely frustrating that the servers are live, but you can't actually play the game. However, after quite a few hours, they did eventually manage to get the servers working so people could actually get into the game and play. And at least as of recording this video, things seem to be working just fine as far as finding matches. And now that we can finally get into matches,
wait. By the way, did you see that they are adding double weapon XP for after the downtime? How long are they adding it for, though?
I say I'm generally enjoying the game, but I do have some initial feedback that I want to provide here. Some of this is stuff I've already talked about in the past with our betas and server test sessions, and some of it is just my initial impressions based on the launch version of the game. And let's first talk about one of the most important factors of an online FPS game. This is the connection quality. And this is something where I can only really speak to my personal experience. Everybody's experience with this may vary. But for me, after a couple solid hours of game...
Let's think before he answers. What has our connection been like? I don't really think I've had any games that have been bad. Like, I haven't had any game. So it's just for the weekend. So yeah, it's not really going to give us a good impression of what's going to happen after that weekend. But yeah. So yeah, as far as connection goes, I don't think I've really had any too horrible connections. I've had some problems where I get shot around corners or I shoot people around corners, but like as a whole, I wouldn't say the connections were bad.
Gameplay time. I've got to say the connection has been not amazing, but also far from unplayable. It's actually been generally okay for me, but I have definitely noticed quite a few situations where it seems like there's just bad desync.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
It seems like enemies are able to like instantly melt me, but it takes me quite a few shots to put them down, even when I'm on target. And then I have also noticed a few deaths around corners as well, where you think you get to cover, but
so that's exactly what I was just saying.
You're not quite there. I'm sure this is something where some people are experiencing this far worse than others, and I feel like I'm actually not experiencing it that bad compared to some of the clips that I've seen on the XDefiant subreddit, for instance. So overall, for the first couple days of a game that just launched, I would actually say the connection has been fine, but not amazing. I think there's definitely room for improvement here. I will say this is feeling better than it felt at the beginning of the last server test session. For me, at least, the connection was far worse at the beginning of that last server test session than it is right now after launch. But in saying that, I definitely think there's still room for improvement. I'm sure this is something they're going to be tweaking and adjusting over time as well as they collect more and more data. I mean, this is the type of thing that's often expected with any online FPS game at launch. Even with Call of Duty that launches every single year, you would think they have that nailed down, but typically the first week or so I find is really rocky, and it does take some time for that.
Yeah, I agree with him there. Like the first week a Call of Duty game comes out, it's generally pretty rocky. When we get a beta, it's generally pretty rocky. And then it smooths out over time as they kind of figure everything out and the player count kind of stabilizes.
Connection to level out a little bit.
Which, by the way, speaking of XDefiant numbers stabilizing, I got to show you something because I was shocked by this. I I did a survey yesterday, and yeah, like I don't have the biggest Twitter in the world, but it gives you a pretty good sample size. And I asked, let me pull it up one sec, what you're playing this weekend. So not even just in general, what are you playing this weekend? I asked this. I said, all right, I need to know, what are you playing this weekend? XDefiant, Call of Duty, or other? XDefiant came in last by a lot. And I did not expect that. Now, keep in mind, only like 1,336 votes, so nothing crazy. And my audience is predominantly Call of Duty, so I expected XDefiant to beat other. I maybe even expected it to be Call of Duty, but I didn't expect it to come in last. Anyway, I found that interesting.
So I'm hoping that's all we're experiencing right now with XDefiant, and this will stabilize over time. And that is sort of my expectation at the moment, but of course, time's gonna tell on this. We're gonna have to wait a week or two for things to settle in and see if they make any notable improvements to the connection quality. But at the end of the day, at least for me, it's been perfectly playable. Next up for feedback, one of the immediate things that I noticed is, where is our practice zone? As of right now, like I said, one day after launch, we still have...
The practice zone they are putting in after today's update, to me, not a big deal. Like, I never use the firing range. I know I'm just not that person. But I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
No access to the practice zone area, and there's no ability to have private matches or custom games. And what this means is if you want to try to get your settings nailed down, or you want to try out some guns...
Oh, also, he probably wants to test stats and stuff. So that's probably why it's another big deal
and
for
attachment combinations. At the moment, the only way to do that is in live public matches, which is obviously frustrating because once you're in a live public match, you don't want to be a bad teammate. You don't want to be that guy standing at the back of the map, shooting at walls and just tweaking your settings and doing a bunch of stuff. And on top of that, somewhat selfishly on my end, as somebody that likes to break things down,
I love how honest Ace is. Like, he's just like, yeah, and honestly, I just need to use it for my job.
I would love to have that practice zone right now so I could start comparing recoil patterns and a bunch of other things that I can do testing with in that practice zone. Since I don't have access to that, all of those videos that I planned are on hold, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with this practice zone. I'm really hoping it doesn't take much longer to get this practice mode online.
It's coming today, Ace. Don't you worry, buddy.
It is a big deal, in my opinion, to have this, even for people that aren't content creators. It's important to have that sort of safe zone where you can just get a feel for things and adjust your settings without screwing over your team. Next up, something we haven't had access to in previous sets, but we're now thrown into with the launch of the game, is XP, and weapon XP, especially in grinding. What does that look like? Well, when it comes to unlocking various weapons, I actually really like the fact that each of them have a fairly basic challenge attached to them that require you to do certain things with certain types of weapons. And I do enjoy
okay, this part's not shit. I like this, but they're too easy. Like 10 hip fire kills with SMGs, 1 game. 20 point blank kills, okay, maybe like 3 games. Hip fire kills with shotguns, 1 game. 15 shotgun point blank kills, maybe 3 games. Like, all of these are very, very easy, and I think unlocking these should take longer, but the weapon levels shouldn't be as long.
Focusing on those specific challenges to get those things unlocked. I actually like that more than just leveling up your character and then unlocking weapons as you level up. But
I still think that there should be things that you unlock for leveling up your character as well.
Branch outside your comfort zone a little bit and actively work toward an in-game challenge. And the key here is these challenges aren't like ridiculously time-consuming or extremely difficult to perform or anything. They're generally pretty easy. You just have to use a certain class of weapons. And
I guess that's true. And we just said 15 point blank kills with a shotgun in 3 games. I guess, yeah, most of the kills you're going to get are going to be point blank. You make a solid point. But with like ARs or SMGs, maybe 3 games.
Maybe adjust your playstyle slightly. So in that sense, I really like that particular grind. Next, let's talk about the mastery skins. So bronze, silver, and gold camos. These work on a gun-by-gun basis, and you'll get the bronze camo for a weapon once you hit level 50 on that weapon. Then at level 75 for that gun, you get silver, and then finally at level 100 for the gun, you get gold. And it's worth noting, these weapon levels seem to be going very, very slow.
Yes.
And that's something where, when it comes to these camos, I'm totally cool with that. I think it should take a good amount of...
He's going to say exactly what I think. And I said it in my video. I said that unlocking your attachments, yeah, it can take time, but it shouldn't take 40 hours to unlock every attachment on one weapon. However, if you want to make the camos last a long time, I'm fine with that. This is exactly what I said in my video.
Investment if you want to unlock the gold camo on a gun, for instance. It should really show that you've used that gun a ton if they're going to handle it by level instead of challenges. In saying that, though, I can't help but think that these weapon levels are a bit on the slow side when it comes to unlocking attachments. Because attachments are actually quite important in this game. they can make a pretty big difference in how your weapon performs. And just with the M4, for instance, as far as I can tell, the latest unlock is going to be unlocked at level 42 for the M4.
I think I saw one for 43.
So at least you don't have to get all the way to level 100. But even at level 42, based on my experience so far, just getting those initial levels complete,
I said 40
it seems like
hours.
That's going to take a ton of hours to get to that point, and that's just with one of the guns.
Maybe it's like
in the
24,
game.
but
so it really seems like it's going to take a ton of investment just to get all of the attachments unlocked for one single gun. And at least based on my initial experience, this.
So I streamed the game for about 2.5 hours yesterday, and I think my ACR is rank 6 or 7. And I just used the ACR. And I played with a sniper for 1 game.
Seems way too slow for attachments. Again, when it comes to cosmetic rewards, make it take as long as you want. I really don't care about that. But this is talking about the actual potential and performance of our gun. And I think there is going to be a pretty big discrepancy in the players that grind super hard at the beginning and get all...
Yeah, so I completely agree with what he's saying here. This is a huge barrier to entry. With a free-to-play game, you should be able to go into the game and compete almost immediately. Look at Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is probably the best example of this. When you go in day one, and it's not a free-to-play game, but when you go in day one, your experience is the same as someone who has played for 100 hours. Yeah, you're not as good, but same experience. When you go into Fortnite for the very first time, yeah, you may not have all the skins, but everything that you pick up in the game that you play is exactly the same as the other people. So when you have this big barrier to entry, and it's going to take hundreds and hundreds of hours to just have all of the attachments on all of the different weapons that you want to use, maybe to play competitively, that's too big of a barrier to entry in a free-to-play game.
All of their attachments unlocked for a bunch of different guns compared to the people that don't
if it took 5 hours on each weapon, okay,
have that much time to invest. Or another potential issue is people that just use one gun and never branch out and try other guns. They're going to be able to get those attachments for that one gun way faster than the people that are trying to branch out and use a variety of things. And so far, with this slow weapon leveling, it really has me feeling like I want to just invest a bunch of time into one gun.
Yeah.
Even though I really would like to branch out and try different guns. But
and honestly, the fun that I have found in XDefiant is from using different stuff. Switching up your classes, switching up your weapons. That's where the fun is in XDefiant. And when you're not able to do that because you have to unlock the attachments for an individual weapon, and it takes so long. I completely
agree. All the
agree
guns
with what
at once. At this rate, it feels like it's going to take me months to get all the attachments unlocked for the guns. Now, again, these are just my early initial impressions. Perhaps there's something I'm missing here. Perhaps there's a method of getting significantly more weapon XP, maybe some sort of trick or something. But as of right now, just playing the game normally and trying to level up my guns, it does seem to be taking very, very long just to get the basic attachments. As for the next bit of feedback, something that feels very different from previous server tests is the volume of my own footsteps. It seems like the volume for enemy footsteps is roughly the same. You can hear footsteps, but not out to a ridiculous range. I've definitely been able to use those sound cues to my advantage, though. However, what I noticed that definitely feels different this time around with launch is when I'm running around, that's all I'm hearing is my own footsteps, and it's a little much in my opinion.
I'm going to pay attention to that.
I'd love it if that could be toned down just a little bit. On one hand, I do get the balancing factor of if you are running, you want to make it more difficult to hear other people that are potentially running around you. So there is a trade-off involved there. But as of right now, that volume level is at the point where it's just kind of annoying me more than anything. And I'm already kind of sick of hearing my footsteps constantly at that level. Outside of that, the last bit of feedback I'm going to provide here is the controller feel still feels off. I honestly don't think they've adjusted really anything from the last server test till now. And I will say I have started to feel a lot more comfortable with the settings that I ended up landing on. So I feel like I'm at the point where I can make it work, but it still doesn't feel great. It just feels like I'm kind of making it work at the moment. So hopefully this is something they can just tighten up and continue to make improvements with over time. For those that are curious about the settings that I landed on and the ones that I'm finding success with, I do plan on having my best settings video coming out tomorrow. I just want to get a bit more playtime with this to see if there's any additional tweaks I need to make before I make that video and share the settings that I'm using. And speaking of which, that playtime that I plan on getting will be live streamed today. I'll finally be able to stream the game this afternoon.
Go check out
I plan on doing a longer stream, so if you guys haven't checked out my Twitch channel yet, I will leave a link to that in the description below. Feel free to swing by and come see how things are going with the game. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up.
That's a good question. Does anyone know if you get weapon XP for playing objective? I don't know. I actually haven't tested. I thought about doing a video on it.
For the issues that I've been having, some of the feedback that I've got based on my very early initial impressions with this game. Overall though, like I said at the beginning, despite the issues and the lack of polish in certain areas, I am enjoying this game. I do find it to be very refreshing. I really like how the matchmaking is feeling, and it's not like I'm completely
We could do some
stomping lobbies
testing
or
today if you guys
anything,
want.
but I just love the fact that everything feels organic. When I get into a lobby, I never know what I'm going to get. I don't feel like there's an algorithm in the background controlling how difficult my next match is going to be based on how I performed in my previous match. When I have a really good game, I feel really good about that. I don't feel that sense of dread that my next game is about to be a lot more difficult. Also, when it comes to losses, and I've had plenty of losses, they feel normal. They feel natural. I don't really feel as upset because it doesn't feel like an algorithm decided that it was my turn to lose. When I lose, I just think, fair enough, on to the next game. And on top of that, I have felt quite comfortable branching.
Honestly, what I find most surprising is I think I've had more close games in XDefiant than I have had in Call of Duty all year. And there's no algorithm running in the background. Just from playing for like the 2 or 3 days that we have played, it seems like most of the games that we get into aren't blowouts. They're like very close 50-point victories. And I don't get that in Call of Duty.
Out and trying new things, although that does bring me back to the weapon leveling. I would like to try out more weapons, but at the same time, at least early on, I really feel like I need to focus on just leveling up the good weapons so I have good weapons with good attachments to always fall back on. On top of that, as far as the things that I'm really enjoying about the game, this is just straight up the general map and spawn design. The spawns in my experience so far are super intuitive, and this just feels so refreshing because I never feel like I'm aimlessly wandering around the map trying to find enemy players.
So that's a very good point.
I always feel like I've got a lock on at least the general area that the enemy team is spawning in at any given time, and therefore outside of the odd person that may flank, I always know the direction that the enemy players are going to be coming from. And that, I think, is one of the things I like the most about XDefiant, is it just feels like you can properly control your surroundings, understand the big picture with ease, and I don't have that constant paranoia of, did the spawn just flip, even though it just flipped like 10 seconds earlier? And to me, at least, that feels excellent and brings back a lot of memories of older style Call of Duty games. So with that is going to wrap it up for today's video on my early initial impressions of XDefiant. I'm sure over time, more things will come up. I'll have more feedback to provide, but as of right now, those are the main things that I wanted to discuss today. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. For those of you guys that have managed to try out XDefiant, especially once the matchmaking got fixed.
I pretty much agree with everything that he said there. Very rarely do we watch one of these videos where I pretty much agree with everything, but pretty much agree with everything that he said. I am curious. Let's check out his comments. The slow XP for guns is a feature to sell future convenience boosts. I agree with that. I actually completely agree with this. It's a free-to-play game, and this is the normal strategy. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like every weapon that used against me kills almost instantaneously. So that's another thing that I've seen often, is that it feels like you die super quick, and then killing someone takes a long time. That's the same with the next person. Desync is the biggest problem right now. Yeah, a lot of people saying that they feel like they kill slower than they get killed. Sniping feels really easy. I agree with that. Yeah, so his thoughts pretty much match mine exactly with the game so far. And again, the big thing that I'm curious to see with XDefiant is its longevity. Like after this week, season 4 of Modern Warfare 3 comes out. I'll be playing that next week on stream. I'm curious after that what I go back to. Am I going to stick with Call of Duty, or am I going to be playing XDefiant? I don't know. Okay.